Do you think this conference would come out with solutions to reduce disaster risk?
The conference and the collective experience has got all the solutions. That's not really our problem. Our problem is to make a convincing argument for applying the knowledge we already have. And it has to do with individuals, with society, with business, etc. So, and not to make it an oversimplified agenda, because it's quite complex. If you really want to reduce risk sustainably, you have to look at many different sectors, and not individually, but they have to work together. So I think that's, and I can see myself, I can hear that there's been a lot of progress over these 10 years. And one of the critical thresholds to cross is moving from the disaster to the risk understanding. I think we can all understand the disaster superficially, but that's not really what will reduce risk in the future. What will reduce risk if we understand the risks, and not just one risk, but several risks working together to really undermine society. And that's what this conference is about. Is as much as it is about negotiating a document and now laying the ground for work in the coming decades, but it's also about people learning very rapidly from each other, allowing themselves to be inspired.
Now, one of the issues, of course, is when we talk about the resilience, there's enough resilience among the people who are vulnerable, otherwise they wouldn't be surviving, or those who are still alive, they wouldn't be surviving. What we need is also money, finance, and we need technologies. Do you see these two things happening as a result of this conference?
Not only because of the conference. I mean, if anything, the conference will up the priorities, increase the understanding of the necessary integration of planning. In any case, historical experience shows that the most critical foundation stone for resilience is social development and economic development. People need to be healthy, well educated, have choices, have jobs. And with that follows, of course, in a way, new risks, as we know, lifestyle risks. So I think the technology is there. The issue of technology is more its availability, and that can be an issue of money, but it can also be an issue of capacity on how to use the technology, which for many countries and individuals is really an issue. We need to look at ourselves. Our capability to use modern technology is quite limited unless we really decide and determine. So the evolution of technology is faster than people's ability to use it. So it is there. Financial resources to acquire it can definitely be a limitation, but an even bigger limitation in many cases is capacity. If you think of money in terms of government's own investments, which is the most critical one, I think we will see that increasing. As the understanding of what it is you do when you build for resilience, it means risk-sensitive infrastructure, risk-sensitive agriculture, water management system. So it's not a standalone issue. I think we will see an increase in investment. Investment for individuals, for the social side of resilience, and in particular with the focus on the most poor people, I think will require a more clear-cut decision or policy direction, which can very probably be helped by the agreement later in this year, hopefully on the post-2015 Universal Development Agenda. I think that will at the best help to put the focus on what needs to be done to continue the very strong focus on poverty reduction.
Do you think the issue of ODA has any relevance these days?
In terms of its size and scale, probably not. Compared to foreign direct investments, private sector growth, the growth. But of course it's got an enormous important symbolic value and political value as a concrete expression of solidarity. Nevertheless, to be very, very fair, still there are a number of countries that depend a lot on ODA. 30-40% of their GDP is still based on ODA in one form or the other, and which is, probably not that healthy in terms of their policy choices at the end of the day. But that is the current economic reality. So really the need for economic development, the type of investments that stimulates countries' own economic growth, people's growth, is need to remain a very critical priority. And that's why I think you see both in the SDG discussion and also in this discussion such a strong emphasis on the national resource base as a foundation, including for international cooperation.
And what role do you see for civil society organizations, including faith-based organizations?
It's very clear from our draft framework, and maybe even more from the collaborative and consultative process that we've been running to get to this conference. One, that civil society is now a very serious actor, and they take very significant responsibilities. Two, many countries very comfortably talk about how important civil society is for their work on DRR and development, and I think that's a very important message, that very large nations say that we depend on them to be able to carry this through, because as a government we certainly cannot do all, but sometimes we cannot deal with the last leg of issues. And that's where I think civil society particularly has a very fundamental role to play, is to be an engaged community actor, to be a partner of local government, to support organizationally and with expertise, but obviously not take over and be the main agent, must be the domestic and community organizations.
Thanks very much.